1. The Göbekli Tepe builders. In 1963, a routine archaeological survey near the city of Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey noted a peculiar limestone ridge. It was dismissed as an abandoned medieval cemetery. For over 3 decades, it remained untouched. Then, in 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt arrived with a small excavation team and began to dig. What they uncovered rewrote the entire timeline of human civilization. Göbekli Tepe, as the site came to be known, consisted of massive stone circles arranged in a complex pattern across 22 acres. Each circle was constructed from T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons and standing 18 feet tall. The pillars were intricately carved with images of animals, abstract symbols, and humanoid figures. The level of artistry was extraordinary. Detailed depictions of lions, foxes, scorpions, vultures, and serpents covered the surfaces, executed with a skill that suggested not primitive art, but refined craftsmanship. But the true shock came when radiocarbon dating results arrived. The structure was over 11,600 years old, built around 9600 BCE, during a period when humans were not supposed to have the social organization, tools, or motivation to construct anything monumental. According to mainstream archaeology, agriculture had not yet been invented. Pottery did not exist. Permanent settlements were still millennia away. Yet here stood a megalithic temple complex that predated Stonehenge by over 6,000 years, and the Egyptian pyramids by more than 7,000 years. The implications are staggering. Göbekli Tepe suggests that advanced symbolic thought, coordinated labor, and monumental architecture emerged far earlier than believed. Whoever built it had mastered stone quarrying, transport logistics, and astronomical alignment. Several pillars point to specific stars and constellations, indicating knowledge of celestial cycles. Some researchers propose that Göbekli Tepe was not just a temple, but an observatory, a school, or a gathering place for a society far more sophisticated than hunter-gatherers. And then there's the mystery of its burial. Around 8000 BCE, the entire site was intentionally filled in with thousands of tons of dirt and rubble. The circles were not destroyed or abandoned. They were carefully preserved beneath the earth, as if someone wanted to hide them or protect them for future discovery. No one knows why. No records explain the decision. The builders simply vanished, leaving behind one of humanity's greatest enigmas, buried beneath a hill in Turkey. Even more unsettling is the academic resistance. For years after Schmidt's discovery, mainstream institutions downplayed the site's significance. Textbooks continued to teach the old timeline. Papers suggesting that Göbekli Tepe indicated a lost prehistoric civilization were rejected from major journals. When Schmidt proposed that similar sites might exist across the region, funding for broader surveys was repeatedly denied. Today, less than 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. The rest remains underground, untouched, officially protected, but realistically inaccessible. If the builders of Göbekli Tepe possessed such capabilities 12,000 years ago, what else did they build? And if this level of advancement existed before recorded history, how many other civilizations have been erased from our understanding of the past? 2. The antediluvian civilization of Sundaland. For thousands of years, indigenous cultures across Southeast Asia have preserved legends of a vast drowned kingdom. Stories passed down through generations speak of great cities that sank beneath the waves, of advanced peoples who mastered navigation, astronomy, and agriculture long before the rise of known civilizations. These tales were dismissed as myth until geologists began mapping the ocean floor between Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. What they discovered was extraordinary. An entire subcontinent now submerged beneath 400 feet of seawater. Sundaland, as scientists call it, was a massive landmass, roughly the size of India. During the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower, it connected what are now islands into a single continuous territory. The region was fertile, rich in resources, and positioned at the crossroads of early human migration routes. If any place could have supported an advanced prehistoric civilization, it was here. And the evidence suggests that one did exist. In 2004, after the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami, receding waters briefly exposed structures along the coasts of Thailand and Indonesia, that had been submerged for millennia. Divers and researchers documented stone foundations, carved pillars, and what appeared to be remnants of ancient harbors. Satellite imaging later revealed geometric patterns on the seabed, straight lines and right angles inconsistent with natural formations. Some formations resembled roads, canals, and city grids, suggesting urban planning on a scale unheard of for the supposed era. Marine archaeologists who explored these sites found pottery shards, tools, and carved stones at depths that would place their construction between 12,000 and 20,000 years ago, long before the supposed dawn of civilization. One structure off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, though technically outside Sundaland, displayed similar features: massive terraced platforms, stairways, and pillars all cut from bedrock. Mainstream geologists insist it's a natural formation, but no natural process creates perfect 90-degree angles or symmetrical steps. What makes Sundaland especially compelling is the sudden catastrophic flooding that destroyed it, around 11,600 years ago. As the Ice Age ended, melting glaciers caused sea levels to rise rapidly, in some estimates as much as 400 feet over just a few centuries. Entire coastal cities would have been swallowed. Populations would have been forced to flee inland, carrying only what they could save. If an advanced civilization had thrived in Sundaland, its remains now lie beneath hundreds of feet of ocean, accessible only to those with the resources and permits to explore, and access has been tightly controlled. In 2009, an international team proposed a large-scale underwater survey of the region using sonar and submersibles. The project was approved by initial governments but abruptly canceled after preliminary findings suggested human-made structures. The data collected was classified under maritime security protocols. Researchers involved were quietly reassigned. No official explanation was given. Indigenous oral traditions describe the drowned cities as places of great learning, where knowledge of the stars, the seasons, and the movement of waters was preserved. Some stories claim that survivors of the flood traveled west and north, bringing their wisdom to nascent cultures in India, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. If true, this would mean that the earliest known civilizations were not independent innovations, but the remnants of something far older. The submersion of Sundaland may represent the single largest loss of human heritage in history, an entire advanced society, erased by rising seas and forgotten by time. The question is not whether it existed, but why we are not allowed to find out for certain. 3. The Antarctic civilization of the Piri Map. In 1929, while cataloging historical documents at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkish historians discovered a fragment of an ancient map. It had been drawn in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. The map depicted the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and South America with remarkable accuracy for its time. But it also showed something impossible: the northern coast of Antarctica, in precise detail, as if it had been surveyed before it was covered by ice. According to all known records, Antarctica was not discovered until 1820. The continent has been buried under miles of ice for at least 6,000 years, with some estimates placing the freeze as far back as 34 million years ago. Yet the Piri Reis map showed mountains, rivers, and bays along the Antarctic coast that perfectly matched the subglacial topography later confirmed by seismic surveys in the 1950s. Features that should have been impossible to know without ice-penetrating technology. Piri Reis himself noted in the margins of his map that he had compiled it from over 20 source maps, some of which dated back to the time of Alexander the Great and beyond. He claimed to have used charts captured from Spanish sailors, who themselves had copied from even older sources. This suggests that the knowledge of Antarctica's ice-free coastline originated from a civilization that existed before the ice formed. A civilization capable of global navigation, cartography, and record-keeping. In 1960, Professor Charles Hapgood of Keene State College presented the map to the U.S. Air Force for analysis. The response was startling. The cartographic unit confirmed that the map's depiction of Antarctica matched modern data obtained through advanced seismic equipment. They could offer no explanation for how such accuracy was achieved in 1513, let alone centuries or millennia earlier. The implications are profound. If Antarctica was mapped before it froze, then an advanced maritime civilization must have existed during a time when the continent was habitable. This would place them at least 6,000 years before the earliest known seafaring cultures and potentially much earlier. It suggests a global network of exploration, one capable of charting distant coastlines and transmitting that knowledge across generations. But the mystery deepens. Satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar have revealed anomalies beneath the Antarctic ice. In 2001, researchers identified a massive circular structure buried 1.2 miles beneath the ice in East Antarctica. Its diameter was over 300 miles, far too large and symmetrical to be natural. Further scans detected geometric patterns suggesting walls, corridors, or foundations. The discovery was briefly reported, then quietly reclassified. Access to the data was restricted under the Antarctic Treaty's environmental protection clauses. In 2016, a Russian expedition drilling near Lake Vostok, a subglacial lake the size of Lake Ontario, recovered water samples containing bacterial DNA unlike anything in known databases. Some speculated the DNA was from an ancient biosphere, isolated for millions of years. Others proposed something more unsettling, contamination from a buried structure. The samples were never publicly analyzed in full. Mainstream science dismisses the idea of a pre-ice Antarctic civilization as fringe speculation. Yet the Piri Reis map remains, the matching coastlines remain, the buried anomalies remain, and the questions remain. Who mapped Antarctica before the ice? How did they achieve such precision? And if they existed, what happened to them when the freeze came? Perhaps more troubling, why has every attempt to investigate these anomalies been blocked, delayed, or classified? If there is nothing beneath the ice, why the resistance? And if there is something, what are we not being allowed to know? 4. The ancient nuclear civilization of the Indus Valley. In 1922, British archaeologist John Marshall began excavating a site in the Punjab region of modern-day Pakistan. What he uncovered was Mohenjo-Daro, one of the largest and most advanced cities of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. The city was a marvel of urban planning, grid-patterned streets, advanced drainage systems, multi-story buildings constructed with uniform baked bricks, public baths, granaries. It was a level of sophistication not seen again until the Roman Empire. Yet Mohenjo-Daro was built around 2500 BCE, over 4,500 years ago. But something was wrong. As excavation continued, Marshall's team encountered evidence that defied explanation. Scattered throughout the city were dozens of skeletons, not buried, but lying in the streets as if death had come suddenly. Many were found in positions suggesting they had been in the midst of daily activities, walking, working, fleeing. There were no signs of violence, no weapons, no trauma to the bones. It was as if an invisible force had killed them instantaneously. Even more disturbing were the bodies themselves. Several skeletons showed signs of extreme heat exposure, temperatures far beyond what any conventional fire could produce. Some bones were fused together, others had been partially vitrified, turned to glass. Stone walls in certain sections of the city bore scorch marks and evidence of intense thermal radiation. Pottery and bricks had been melted, then rapidly cooled, creating a glazed surface similar to what's seen at nuclear test sites. In the 1990s, British researcher David Davenport conducted a detailed analysis of the Mohenjo-Daro site. He identified a 150-foot radius epicenter where the heat damage was most concentrated. Buildings at the center were completely obliterated. Those farther out showed decreasing levels of destruction, consistent with a shockwave radiating outward. Davenport estimated that temperatures at the epicenter had reached 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to liquefy clay and stone. The only known phenomenon capable of generating such heat is a nuclear explosion. Ancient Sanskrit texts from the region add a chilling layer to the mystery. The Mahabharata, an epic poem composed thousands of years ago, contains passages describing weapons of unimaginable power. One passage reads, "A single projectile charged with all the power of the universe, an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns rose in all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death which reduced to ashes the entire race." Another text describes the aftermath. The corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. Hair and nails fell out. Pottery broke without cause. Birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. These descriptions bear an eerie resemblance to eyewitness accounts from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The symptoms, radiation sickness, the sudden deaths, the thermal destruction, all align. Could the Mahabharata be describing not mythology, but actual historical events? And if so, who possessed nuclear technology over 4,000 years ago? Attempts to investigate this possibility have been met with swift academic rejection. When Davenport published his findings, he was dismissed as a pseudoscientist. Requests to conduct radiological testing on the vitrified materials at Mohenjo-Daro were denied. Samples that had been collected in the early 1900s and stored in British museums mysteriously disappeared. In 2008, a team of independent researchers applied for permits to perform ground-penetrating radar scans across the site. Their application was rejected by the Pakistani government without explanation. The official narrative remains that Mohenjo-Daro was abandoned due to climate change or shifting river patterns, yet this does not explain the sudden mass death, the vitrified stonework, or the textual descriptions of devastating weapons. If an advanced civilization in the Indus Valley did possess nuclear technology or something comparable, it would overturn every assumption about the progression of human knowledge. And if such a civilization existed and destroyed itself, the implications for our own world are sobering. Perhaps we are not the first to reach this level of technological capability. Perhaps others came before us, built great cities, and then vanished in fire and ash. The ruins of Mohenjo-Daro may not be a mystery of the past, but a warning for the future. 5. The submerged metropolis of Yonaguni. In 1987, a local diver named Kihachiro Aratake was exploring the waters off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island, the westernmost point of Japan. He was searching for new diving spots for tourists when he descended into an underwater landscape that should not exist. Rising from the seabed were massive stone structures, terraces, platforms, staircases, and walls, all carved with sharp angles and geometric precision. The formation stretched over 160 feet in length and descended to depths of 75 feet. They looked unmistakably man-made. News of the discovery spread quickly. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus led an extensive study of the site. Over the next 2 decades, he and his team documented pillars, archways, triangular pools, and what appeared to be a central pyramid-like structure. Some stones bore tool marks, grooves that suggested deliberate cutting and shaping. Others featured carvings, symbols, and pictographs that did not match any known Japanese script or iconography. The most striking feature was a series of steps, each perfectly level and uniform in height, leading from the seabed to higher platforms. Natural erosion does not create staircases. Wind and water do not carve right angles. Yet mainstream geologists insisted the Yonaguni Monument, as it came to be called, was a natural formation, a rare but coincidental arrangement of sandstone shaped by tectonic activity. But the timeline presented a problem. If the structures were submerged, they had to have been built before the sea level rose to its current position. Geological data indicates that the Yonaguni area was last above water around 10,000 BCE at the end of the last ice age. This would mean the monument was constructed over 12,000 years ago, thousands of years before the earliest known civilizations in Japan or anywhere else in East Asia. Kimura proposed that Yonaguni was part of a larger coastal city, now drowned, that extended across what was once a land bridge connecting Japan to Taiwan and mainland China. He suggested that an advanced maritime culture had thrived in the region, one capable of monumental stone construction, navigation, and social organization. The discovery of similar underwater formations near Okinawa and Taiwan lent support to this theory, yet the academic establishment remained hostile. Kimura's papers were rejected from international journals. When he presented his findings at conferences, he was openly mocked. Funding for further research dried up. In 2001, a documentary team filming the site reported that their footage was confiscated by Japanese authorities under the claim of maritime law violations, though no formal charges were filed. Even more suspicious, in 2011, an independent team of engineers conducted 3D sonar mapping of the monument and the surrounding seabed. The data revealed a network of submerged roads, foundations, and what appeared to be harbor structures extending far beyond the visible monument. The findings were presented to the Japanese Ministry of Culture. The response was silence. No official statement was issued. The sonar data was never published. Local legends speak of a lost kingdom called Mu or Lemuria, a vast Pacific civilization that sank beneath the waves. For generations, these stories were dismissed as folklore. But the existence of Yonaguni suggests otherwise. If structures of this scale and complexity exist beneath the waters of Japan, how many others lie hidden across the Pacific floor? And if an advanced civilization did exist in this region over 10,000 years ago, what happened to them? Did they vanish in the flood? Or did survivors carry their knowledge elsewhere, seeding the later cultures of Asia with wisdom from a forgotten age? The stones of Yonaguni hold the answers, but those answers remain submerged, guarded not just by the ocean, but by a wall of institutional denial. 6. The astronomical engineers of Nabta Playa. In 1974, a team of archaeologists working in the remote Nubian desert of southern Egypt stumbled upon a site that would challenge everything historians believed about early African civilization. Nabta Playa, a dry lakebed surrounded by lifeless sand, contained the remnants of an ancient settlement. But this was no ordinary village. Arranged in a precise circular pattern were massive stone megaliths, some weighing over 2 tons, aligned with astronomical accuracy to track the summer solstice. The stones were not randomly placed. They formed what is now recognized as the world's oldest known astronomical observatory, predating Stonehenge by at least 1,000 years. Radiocarbon dating of organic material found at the site placed its construction between 7,000 and 9,000 years ago, during a time when the Sahara was a fertile grassland dotted with lakes and teeming with life. But the true sophistication of Nabta Playa was only revealed through detailed archaeoastronomical analysis. Researchers discovered that the megaliths aligned not only with the solstice, but also with specific star systems, including Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. The alignment was so precise that it could only have been achieved through advanced knowledge of celestial mechanics and long-term observation. Whoever built Nabta Playa understood the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that takes 26,000 years to complete. Even more astonishing, in 1998, geophysicists using ground-penetrating radar detected buried structures beneath the stone circle. Deep underground, they found carved bedrock sculptures shaped like cattle, arranged in a subterranean chamber. The purpose remains unknown, but the effort required to excavate solid bedrock without metal tools is staggering. The people of Nabta Playa were not supposed to exist. According to mainstream history, sub-Saharan Africa during this period was inhabited only by small bands of hunter-gatherers with no permanent settlements, no monumental architecture, and no written records. Yet here was evidence of a highly organized society with the resources, knowledge, and motivation to build an astronomical temple in the desert. Some researchers propose that Nabta Playa was not an isolated achievement, but part of a broader network of prehistoric African civilizations. They suggest that when the Sahara began to dry out around 5,000 years ago, the inhabitants migrated northeast toward the Nile Valley, bringing their astronomical and architectural knowledge with them. This could explain the sudden appearance of advanced civilization in Egypt, complete with pyramid construction, celestial alignment, and a calendar based on the stars. But this theory has been aggressively suppressed. In 2003, a comprehensive study proposing that Nabta Playa was the origin point of Egyptian civilization was rejected by every major archaeological journal in the field. The lead researcher was accused of Afrocentrism and denied tenure at his university. When a documentary exploring the connection between Nabta Playa and Egypt was scheduled to air on a major European network, it was pulled at the last minute without explanation. Even the site itself has been quietly restricted. Although technically accessible, visitors must obtain permits from the Egyptian government that are rarely approved. Archaeological digs beyond the surface layer have been halted indefinitely. The underground chambers detected by radar have never been excavated. The reason given is preservation, but critics argue it's suppression. If the people of Nabta Playa truly possessed advanced astronomical knowledge 9,000 years ago, it shatters the Eurocentric narrative of civilization. It suggests that Africa, not Mesopotamia or Egypt, was the cradle of scientific thought, and if their knowledge was passed down, it raises the possibility that the greatest achievements of ancient Egypt were not innovations, but inheritances from an even older source. The stones of Nabta Playa still stand in the desert, silent witnesses to a forgotten dawn. They track the stars as they have for millennia, but the people who placed them there, who watched the heavens and understood the cosmos, have been erased from history, not by time, but by those who prefer the past to remain buried. 7. The precision masons of Puma Punku. In the highlands of Bolivia, 12,800 feet above sea level, lies one of the most enigmatic archaeological sites on Earth. Puma Punku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex, consists of massive stone blocks arranged in a pattern that suggests a once great temple or palace. But these are not ordinary stones. They are masterpieces of precision engineering, cut and shaped with such exactness that modern stonemasons struggle to replicate them even with advanced tools. The blocks are made from andesite and diorite, two of the hardest stones on the planet, second only to diamond in durability. Some weigh over 130 tons, yet they feature perfectly flat surfaces, laser-straight edges, and intricate interlocking grooves. Many have H-shaped cuts and drilled holes with smooth, parallel sides, as if machined. There are no chisel marks, no signs of hammering or crude shaping. The precision is beyond what copper or bronze tools could achieve. Archaeologists date Puma Punku to around 500 CE, attributing it to the Tiwanaku civilization, but this timeline is based solely on pottery and organic material found near the site, not the stones themselves. Stone cannot be carbon dated, and the level of precision suggests a far more advanced origin. Some researchers argue that Puma Punku could be thousands of years older, possibly predating the last ice age. Adding to the mystery is the site's condition. Puma Punku is not intact. The blocks are scattered across the plateau as if a cataclysmic event, a flood, earthquake, or explosion, tore the structure apart. Some stones are found miles from the main site. Others are half buried in sediment layers that suggest rapid deposition, consistent with a massive flood. Local legends speak of a great deluge that destroyed the ancient city in a single night. The precision of the cuts has led to controversial theories. Engineer Christopher Dunn conducted a detailed analysis and concluded that the blocks showed evidence of diamond-tipped drilling and possibly laser or ultrasonic cutting. He noted that some grooves were too narrow and deep to have been carved by hand, requiring tools capable of sustained, controlled pressure with minimal vibration. In 2012, a team of geologists proposed that Puma Punku's blocks were not transported from a nearby quarry, but were cast in place using a form of geopolymer concrete, an ancient technique that could produce stone-like material with precision molds. This would explain the exactness and the lack of tool marks. But when they requested permission to conduct chemical analysis on the stones, the Bolivian government denied access. Mainstream archaeology dismisses alternative theories as pseudoscience, insisting that the Tiwanaku people built Puma Punku using simple tools and immense labor. Yet no one has successfully demonstrated how andesite blocks weighing over 100 tons could be quarried, transported across rugged terrain, and shaped with such precision using only copper chisels and stone hammers. The site raises unsettling questions. If Puma Punku was built by a pre-Columbian civilization with capabilities far beyond what history records, then who were they? Where did they acquire such knowledge? And why does their legacy consist only of scattered ruins, as if their civilization was deliberately destroyed or erased? Perhaps the most chilling aspect is the official silence. Despite the site's obvious significance, funding for excavation and research has been minimal. Proposals to use modern imaging technology to scan beneath the surface have been rejected, and any scholar who suggests that Puma Punku represents evidence of a lost advanced civilization risks professional ruin. The stones remain, scattered across the Bolivian plateau, testimony to a knowledge we no longer possess. They do not speak, but they challenge us. And in their silence, they ask, what else have we forgotten? 8. The global cartographers of the Oronteus Finaeus Map. In 1531, French geographer Oronteus Finaeus published a world map that should not have been possible. Drawn with meticulous detail, it depicted continents, coastlines, and geographical features with a level of accuracy that would not be officially achieved until the age of satellite imaging. But the most impossible element was its depiction of Antarctica, shown not as the ice-covered wasteland we know today, but as a continent with detailed rivers, mountains, and coastal features, as if surveyed before it froze. The map showed Antarctica in two distinct sections, East and West Antarctica, separated by a body of water. This division was not confirmed by modern science until the 1950s, when seismic surveys revealed that beneath the ice, the continent is indeed split by a subglacial sea. Finaeus could not have known this. No one in the 16th century could have. Like the Piri Reis map, the Oronteus Finaeus map was reportedly compiled from far older source maps, some dating back to classical antiquity or earlier. This implies that at some point in the distant past, a civilization existed with the capacity to conduct global exploration and cartography. They mapped Antarctica before it was buried under ice, suggesting they existed at least 6,000 years ago, possibly much earlier. But how could a prehistoric civilization achieve such a feat? Mapping continents requires not only ships capable of long-range ocean travel, but also instruments to measure latitude and longitude with precision. It requires coordinated expeditions, centralized record-keeping, and a stable society capable of sustaining such efforts over generations. In 1963, Professor Charles Hapgood expanded his earlier work on the Piri Reis map to include the Oronteus Finaeus Map. He argued that both maps, along with several others from the medieval period, were copies of a now-lost master archive of ancient cartography. He proposed that this archive originated from a maritime civilization that thrived during the last ice age, when sea levels were lower and climates were different. When their world was destroyed, possibly by rapid climate change or flooding, fragments of their knowledge survived, passed down and copied by later cultures. Hapgood's theory gained unexpected support from an unlikely source. In 1965, the United States Air Force Cartographic Division analyzed the Oronteus Finaeus Map at his request. Their conclusion was unequivocal. The map's depiction of Antarctica's ice-free coastline matched the subglacial topography revealed by modern seismic data. They could offer no explanation for how this was achieved without advanced technology. Yet despite this official confirmation, the academic world rejected Hapgood's findings. His books were removed from university reading lists. His lectures were boycotted. When he applied for funding to investigate other ancient maps, he was denied. The mainstream narrative held firm. Antarctica was discovered in 1820. Any suggestion otherwise was dismissed as fringe speculation. But the maps remain, and they are not alone. The Boacha map of 1737, the Zeno map of 1380, the King Jaime World Chart of 1502, all show features of the world that were supposedly unknown at the time they were drawn, rivers in the Amazon that were not officially explored until the 19th century, islands in the Pacific not charted until the 20th century, coastlines accurate to within miles of modern satellite measurements. If these maps are copies of ancient originals, then a lost civilization once possessed a complete understanding of the Earth's geography. They sailed every ocean, charted every coast, and recorded it all with stunning precision. Then they vanished, leaving only fragments of their knowledge scattered across the centuries, copied by cultures that no longer understood the source. The implications are staggering. If such a civilization existed, it would rewrite human history. It would prove that advanced societies rose and fell long before the accepted dawn of civilization, and it would raise the ultimate question: if they disappeared, what destroyed them? And could it happen to us? 9. The architects of the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. In 2005, Bosnian-American researcher Samir Osmanagic made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. He claimed to have discovered a complex of ancient pyramids in the hills near Visoko, Bosnia. The largest, which he named the Pyramid of the Sun, stood over 720 feet tall, taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. If genuine, it would be the largest pyramid structure on Earth. Mainstream archaeologists immediately dismissed the claim, insisting the formations were natural hills shaped by geological processes. But as excavation began, the evidence grew harder to ignore. The sides of the Pyramid of the Sun were oriented precisely to the cardinal directions with an error margin of less than 1 degree. Ground-penetrating radar revealed internal chambers, tunnels, and geometric voids inconsistent with natural formations. The surface was covered with massive stone blocks, some weighing several tons, fitted together with mortar-like material. Laboratory analysis of the blocks revealed they were not natural stone, but a form of ancient concrete, a mixture of crushed stone, clay, and an unknown binding agent stronger than modern cement. Carbon dating of organic material embedded in the mortar returned ages between 10,000 and 25,000 years old. If accurate, this would make the Bosnian pyramids the oldest large-scale structures on the planet, predating Göbekli Tepe, the Egyptian pyramids, and every other known ancient site. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Beneath the pyramids, Osmanagic's team uncovered an extensive network of tunnels, some stretching for miles beneath the valley. The tunnels were not natural caves. They had flat floors, arched ceilings, and smooth walls. Inside, they found massive ceramic sculptures, inscribed stone tablets, and geometric symbols carved into the bedrock. Some chambers contained crystals and showed signs of acoustic resonance, leading some researchers to theorize that the pyramids functioned as energy generators or communication devices. Electromagnetic measurements around the pyramids detected unusual energy emissions, focused beams of electromagnetic radiation emanating from the peak of the Pyramid of the Sun at a frequency of 28 kilohertz, far beyond the range of natural geological activity. Some scientists propose that the pyramids were designed to harness Earth's natural energy and amplify it, a concept echoed in the theoretical work of Nikola Tesla. The response from the academic establishment was swift and hostile. The European Association of Archaeologists issued a statement condemning the excavation, calling it a cruel hoax and absurdity. Leading archaeologists refused to visit the site. Funding requests were rejected. Papers submitted to journals were returned without peer review. When independent geologists confirmed the presence of man-made concrete blocks, their findings were ignored. The Bosnian government, initially supportive, began distancing itself from the project after pressure from international academic bodies. Permits for deeper excavation were delayed. Access to certain tunnels was restricted. In 2013, a team of researchers attempting to conduct further electromagnetic analysis were denied entry to the site by military personnel without explanation. Critics argue that the pyramid theory is pseudoscience, that the hills are simply unusual natural formations mistaken for ancient structures. But the precision of the alignments, the composition of the blocks, the tunnels, and the energy emissions all defy easy dismissal. If the Bosnian pyramids are natural, then nature has somehow created mathematically precise geometric forms, internal tunnel systems, and electromagnetic anomalies that mimic engineered technology. If the pyramids are real, they represent a civilization that existed at the height of the last ice age, a society capable of monumental construction, advanced material science, and possibly energy technology beyond our current understanding. Their existence would shatter the timeline of European history and force a re-evaluation of what ancient humans were capable of achieving. But the pyramids remain controversial, not because the evidence is weak, but because the implications are too destabilizing. To accept them would be to admit that everything we've been taught about the past is incomplete, if not entirely wrong. And perhaps that is why the pyramids of Bosnia, like so many other ancient mysteries, have been buried, not by time, but by the weight of official denial. 10. The megalithic civilization of Lixian. Deep in the mountains of Sichuan Province, China, lies a site so remote and inaccessible that it was only rediscovered in the 21st century. Known as Lixian, it consists of over 200 massive stone structures scattered across a valley, some weighing over 50 tons. The stones are arranged in precise geometric patterns, circles, squares, and alignments that suggest astronomical or ritual significance. But the most astonishing aspect of Lixian is not the size of the stones, but their age. Initial surveys conducted by Chinese archaeologists in 2003 dated organic material found within the structures to over 8,000 years old. Further analysis suggested that some stones may have been placed even earlier, potentially 12,000 to 15,000 years ago. This would make Lixian one of the oldest megalithic sites in Asia, contemporary with Göbekli Tepe, and predating Chinese dynastic civilization by millennia. The stones themselves show evidence of advanced shaping techniques. Many have perfectly flat surfaces and precise right angles. Some bear carvings, spirals, zigzags, and circular patterns that resemble symbols found in other prehistoric sites across Eurasia. The arrangement suggests knowledge of geometry, possibly tied to solar or lunar cycles. Local legends speak of a race of giants who lived in the mountains before the Han people, builders of great stone cities who vanished in a catastrophe. But Lixian has been almost entirely ignored by the international archaeological community. No major excavation has been conducted. No comprehensive study has been published in English-language journals. The site remains undocumented on most maps. When foreign researchers have requested access, they have been politely declined or redirected to other, less controversial sites. In 2010, satellite imaging revealed that Lixian was not an isolated site, but part of a much larger network of megalithic structures extending across the region. Dozens, possibly hundreds of similar stone complexes were identified, all hidden beneath forest canopy and mountainous terrain. The scale suggested not a single settlement, but an entire civilization. A leaked internal report from the Chinese Academy of Sciences acknowledged the discovery and proposed that Lixian represented a prehistoric culture unrelated to any known Chinese ethnic group. The report suggested that the builders may have migrated from Central Asia or even farther west, bringing megalithic construction techniques with them. but the report was never officially released. The researchers involved were reassigned, and further investigation was quietly shelved. The suppression of Lixian is particularly troubling because it challenges the narrative of Chinese civilization as a singular, continuous development rooted in the Yellow River Valley. If an advanced stone-building culture existed in Sichuan 10,000 years ago, it suggests that China's past is far more complex and diverse than officially acknowledged. It raises the possibility that the earliest Chinese dynasties did not emerge in isolation, but were influenced or preceded by older forgotten peoples. The stones of Lixian remain in the mountains, largely untouched, officially unrecognized. They are a silent testament to a civilization that thrived when humanity was supposedly incapable of such achievements. And like so many other ancient mysteries, they have been hidden, not by the passage of time, but by the deliberate choice to look away. Across continents and millennia, a pattern emerges. Advanced civilizations existed long before history says they should have. They built with precision we struggle to match. They mapped the world before it was officially discovered. They understood astronomy, geometry, and possibly energy systems we are only beginning to rediscover. And then they vanished, erased not just by catastrophe, but by a systematic suppression of their memory. These are not isolated anomalies. They are chapters of a hidden history, one that suggests humanity's story is far older and far more complex than we've been taught. The question is not whether these civilizations existed. The evidence is carved in stone, buried beneath ice, submerged in oceans, and mapped in forgotten archives. The question is why we are not allowed to know the full truth. Perhaps it is because accepting these civilizations would mean admitting that progress is not linear, that humanity has risen before, achieved greatness, and then fallen into darkness. That we are not the first and may not be the last, and that the greatest danger is not that we will forget our history, but that we have already forgotten it and are doomed to repeat it. The stones remain, the maps remain, the ruins remain, and they whisper a truth we are only beginning to hear. We are not the pinnacle of human achievement. We are the inheritors of a legacy we do not yet understand. And until we are willing to confront the full scope of our past, we will never truly know who we are or what we are capable of becoming. The ruins do not mourn. They wait.